Show us your glory, Lord. Show us your glory this morning as we look at your word. Help us to see the truths that lie within it. Thank you. Amen. Morning. Morning. Yesterday was the feast day of Thomas the Apostle. Now, I bet you've known him from Sunday school as Doubting Thomas. Doubting Thomas. Is that a fair description of him, I wonder? We're going to have a look. Do you have doubts? I have doubts. I have all sorts of doubts. I doubt I will ever live on the moon. I doubt I will ever have a pet tarantula. And I doubt that I will ever be an Olympic gymnast. I mean, you know. So what am I talking about then when I use the word doubt? And I'm going to pause for a moment because I want you to think, not to discuss. I want you just to think for a moment. What is the definition for you of doubt? Just for a moment. What is doubt? I just want you to think for a moment. What is doubt?
Not being sure.
When I sat down to think about what doubt means to me, actually I found it quite hard to think of a definition of doubt without using the word doubt. And that's never very clever, is it? You've said the words that I would put in that definition. Unlikely, uncertain, never. I'm never going to live on the moon, am I? Well, I can't believe. The dictionary says it's a feeling of not being certain about something or about how good or true something is. And we use doubt so often in our everyday language. I bet you haven't thought about how many times the word doubt is in language. We say things like, I doubt her ability to be a nuclear physicist. I mean, somebody could say that of me. The prosecution established guilt beyond reasonable doubt. I'm doubting I made the right decision when I made that decision. And sometimes it can be used to emphasize what we're saying. Won't rain today, no doubt about that. Without doubt, we say, don't we? So let's read from John chapter 20, verses 24 to 29. John chapter 20. Now Thomas, called Didymus, one of the 12, was not with the other disciples when Jesus came. When the other disciples told him that they had seen the Lord, he declared, unless I see the nail marks in his hands and put my finger where the nails were and put my hand into his side, I will not believe it. A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, peace be with you. Then he said to Thomas, put your finger here. See my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God." And then Jesus told him, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." Who uses the word doubt? Jesus does, not Thomas. Jesus says, don't doubt, stop doubting. But actually, the word that is used for doubting is this: don't be without belief. Is that different? Don't be without belief. Let's look a bit further. Before we look at this particular episode in Thomas's life, let's see what else is known about him and what else he's done. There isn't a lot in the Gospels about Thomas. Thomas Didymus. Do you know what Didymus means? Twin. It means twin. Yeah, Thomas the twin. We don't know who his twin was. Unlikely the twin was a disciple, I think. He's not named. Thomas is named in the lists of disciples, the apostles that are named, but we only hear his words in John. So he only speaks in John. Well, I expect he spoke other times, but only John recorded them. Let's get that right. And we have 3 listings of John speaking. And the first is when the disciples are with Jesus and the news of the death of Lazarus has come, and Jesus has declared his intent to go to the house of Mary and Martha and to see them. And Thomas says, "Let us also go, that we might die with him." He knows the danger. He recognizes the danger of getting to the vicinity of Jerusalem, Bethany, just over the hill from Jerusalem. He recognizes the risk to Jesus and his life, and therefore the implied risk to the disciples. Does this sound like a man of doubt to you? At this point, I think I'd want to rename him. I would say that this is a man of courageous loyalty. I think I'd want to name him Thomas the Brave. Not doubting Thomas, Thomas the Brave. And then, in John 14, Jesus has been talking about trusting to his disciples. And he's been saying he's going to go ahead. He's going to prepare a place. They know the way to the place that he's going. You know, in that enigmatic way that Jesus has. You know where I'm going, and you can come too, and you'll know the way. And Thomas, the realist, says, "We don't know where you're going, so how can we know the way?" It's a serious question, isn't it? Realistic question. Does that sound like a doubter to you? I think at this point I'd want to name him Thomas the Practical, or Thomas the Realist. A serious question. Jesus takes it seriously. And you know, if Thomas had not asked that question, we would probably not have the verses that follow. And the verses that follow: "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you really know me, you will know my Father as well. From now on, you do know him, and you've seen him." So that question opened the doorway to one of our greatly loved passages. So far, doubt is not exactly part of Thomas's character, is it? I don't think. So what we've read in John, Thomas was obviously not with the disciples when Jesus first appeared to them. And he makes this declaration: "I'm not going to believe unless I can put my finger." And you know, he's got the label Doubting Thomas, when actually he is probably not saying anything very different from the disciples themselves. Can you imagine when the women came running back from the tomb? "We've seen Jesus, we've seen Jesus, we've seen Jesus." What are the disciples likely to have said? "You sure?" He must be mistaken. Was it really him? No, can't have been. Did you imagine it? But none of that is recorded, so they don't get the label. I wonder if Thomas is saying, I don't want to live off your experience. I want my own experience. I don't want to live off what you have and what you see and what you know. It reminds me of a man that actually has just recently died by the name of Jim, who said very often, when I was a young Christian, I wasn't really living in the flow, and I certainly wasn't filled. And I lived off the overflow of my brother's cup running over, because I didn't have any of my own. And that has always struck me and stayed with me for many years. I don't have my own overflow, so I'm going to live off my brother's. And I wonder if Thomas is saying, I don't want to live off your overflow. I want my own experience of Jesus. And Jesus appears, and he appears in peace. He says, peace be with you. And then he says to Thomas, put your finger here. I looked at one commentator who suggested that the more literal translation of that is, bring your finger over here. Bring your finger over here. That sounds to me like a teasing Jesus, not a rebuking Jesus, a teasing Jesus. Don't be without belief. Believe. And then he makes this amazing declaration, my Lord and my God. That's revelation, isn't it? So Thomas the brave, Thomas the realist, yeah. Thomas the doubter, I don't think so. So where are you with doubt? Do you have doubts? I bet if we were honest, the answer is yes. I think the question is, what do we do with it? What do we do with these questions? Because if we leave doubt to its own devices, it can become corrosive and undermining, and it can get in the way, and we believe then the lies that follow. Sometimes I think we're afraid of doubt itself, fearing that if we express a doubt, that we're immediately going to have a circle of people around us who are saying, oh, you mustn't doubt, you mustn't doubt, you mustn't doubt. Just trust, you mustn't doubt. I don't think that's right, because I think doubt can be a very powerful energy for us if we use it in the right way. Our great scientists, you know, the scientists down through the ages, if they had not had doubt, as in, if they had not questioned what they were hearing and being told was fact, we would not be living in the way that we live today. As I was thinking about it, if we hadn't had people who studied anatomy in the way that we did, in the way that they did, we would still be living in an age where the heart was seen as the engine of the body, the seat of the emotions and the mind and the passions, almost seen as a fire. The brain, nothing. Just a bag of watery fluid that had no role at all. Those people that pursued truth made great discoveries. I don't think we would have penicillin if people hadn't pursued the questions. Doubts lead to answers if they are pursued. I don't think Thomas was a doubter. He asked questions. He pursued belief. But if you have doubts that undermine you, doubts that have plagued you, doubts that cause you to fear and are unhelpful, here is a place where you can be set free. God can cope with our questions. He is much, much bigger. than the questions we ask. So think about Thomas the brave, Thomas the realist, and let's get rid of that label, doubting Thomas.
Changed. Set free. Lord, for the future,